Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Each week, our hosts will be interviewing local, regional, and national business leaders to give you an inside peek into how they lead their business to success in the ever-competitive business climate.
Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Today I have a very special guest all the way from the Great North in Canada. Natalie Doyle Oldfield is a leading trust expert and the author of The Power of Trust, with a new book set to launch on October 29th. For the past 29 years, she has helped business owners and leaders implement the 8 principles of trust, showing that increased trust drives sales, promotions, and career opportunities. Recognized as a top thought leader in trust for 5 consecutive years by Trust Across America, she has spoken alongside industry leaders like Howard Schultz and Stephen Covey. With extensive experience in IT, leadership, and communication, Natalie shares trust-building frameworks at conferences and corporate events to enhance customer relationships and business growth. Natalie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here, Lance.
Yeah, happy to have you. Before we get into what you do, I ask everybody this question. How did you get here? Are you from a family of entrepreneurs? Are you the first? Where does that spirit come from?
Well, it actually started with my father. My father still is very entrepreneurial, and he started and had a very successful consulting and really professional development organization for about 25 years. And I was really inspired by him. He also wrote several books. And as you mentioned in the introduction, I'm really excited to talk about my new book, Trusted: The Proven Path to Customer Loyalty and Business Growth. And in that book, I actually share a bit more about why and my entrepreneurial spirit. And I just thought maybe I'd share that with you since you asked.
Yeah.
My whole career, I spent about 25 years in business before I started my company, Success Through Trust. My whole career, I was always really curious about a few simple questions. Things like, what makes customers decide to buy? What makes people tick? How is it that some companies are so successful and others not? And I got so interested in this while I was working full-time, Lance, as chief marketing officer for a company responsible for customers and sales and marketing. I actually went back to graduate school, and studied that question. How is it that some companies are successful and others not? And when the results came in from the research project, my jaw dropped. It was like an epiphany, because what I learned is that the most critical factor for all companies to be successful is to be trusted and to have the trust of their customers. And that's what really started me on this path. Like I said, I was still working full time, but when I learned that, I really wanted to dig in and find out, well, how do they do it? And I created a proprietary framework and then some tools, and then tested it, and then started teaching people it. And that's really what got me going. And the why to your question is that I really would love it if everybody knew how to do this. And if everyone, Lance, had a company full of trustworthy people, we would have a very different environment. And so I just love working with business owners and leaders and managers to show them how to do this. And that's really why I do it. I'm on a mission to help build companies by helping them build relationships of trust with their customers and employees.
When a customer is looking at a company, whether it's a service-based company or a product-based company, and can you speak a little bit about maybe how they're looking at it through their lens and starting to form either trust or not trust? Like, what are they looking at, and how are they analyzing it so that the business owner then can understand what, that part of it, so they can be more empathetic and try to build that rapport better, quicker?
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad you asked that question, because the truth is everyone is looking at every company based on the lens of, do I trust? And most people do it subconsciously. Many are starting to do it more consciously though. And they're looking at, do I trust them? Do I like them? Am I comfortable with? Do I feel safe with them? Do I like what they do? And people are more skeptical now. Customers are more skeptical now than they've ever been. So they're looking for companies that are transparent, that are honest, that are open, that do things that act in their best interests. They behave well.
Mm-hmm.
They're socially conscious and they're ethical. Ultimately, they're deciding whether or not to trust or not. And they do that really by looking at three significant or three main components, Lance. How a company communicates, how it behaves, and how it serves them.
I love that. And most people, maybe you could drill down on how are people finding companies now, right? Which is obviously like they're on their phone probably, they're looking on Google
Yes.
or something like this. And so what can companies do with the limited ways that those sort of search engines allow you to be found? Like that's kind of what I'm getting at is like what are the things, if there's a top three
Yeah.
things that a company should be outward with to sort of establish that right away and just kind of get people in that mindset.
Well, if I could only choose three things, I would say start with your current stakeholders. So start with your employees and your current customers. You see, when you're trusted, and I know you know this, but it's intuitive, but people don't pay attention. So when you're trusted, your customers recommend you, right? You get
Mm-hmm.
repeat business
Yeah.
from your customers and you get referrals. So I would start with the current customers. Then what I would and employees. And of course, when you're trusted, your employees tell all their friends. Then what I might do outwardly is share your stories online. Share your stories, let people know what kinds of things you do in your company. You see, we buy from people we know, like, and trust. And if it's really hard to find anything about your company, it's really hard to buy from you. And so, if you're the managing partner or one of your listeners is a managing partner, let's say of an engineering firm or an architectural firm, well, you can share pictures of what you do, right? Most of us, about 60% of the population, some studies say it's higher, are very
Yeah.
visual. Well, for an architecture firm, you're really lucky because you can actually show lots of pictures of your work. However, we respond to people.
Mm.
You not only show pictures of your work, but people and have testimonials from customers that say, this is what it was like to work with you. Because we want to hear from other people. That's social proof. So
Yeah.
that's another thing I would do. And then the third thing is I would let people know what your values are, what your mission is, what your story is. Just like you asked me, what's your
Mm-hmm.
story? Tell me about your entrepreneurial journey. We're curious. We want to know. And it helps us decide, oh, is this person like me? Do I want to work with them? Because we're always subconsciously and consciously evaluating, do I trust them? Everything we do either builds trust or takes away from trust. So
Yeah.
the more you share, the better someone can get to know you.
I'm constantly looking at our competitors on Google because we trade places on the first page of Google now with a lot of heavy hitters in Colorado. And there's one website that I go to, one of our competitors, and the first when I click on that link and after that first page, what comes up is all of his awards that he's won.
Okay.
But that's it. It's all awards, right? If you go to our webpage, then one of the first things you're going to see is me and Al, my business partner, in a 4 to 5 minute video, a commercial essentially telling you who we are, what we can do, and how we can help, and all the other things. And then there's a lot of other competitors who fall into a sort of a third category, which is they're showing the beautiful work, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and I'm curious about um knowing that, and that really is kind of how it works with architects and designers. Is so you're right that we're lucky we get to show off the work. But
Yes.
but which one is really going to resonate with somebody to help them build that trust? I mean, is it all the awards and just all the writing? Is it us? And you don't have to, by all
It's
means, you
you.
know.
No, it's you, Lance. It's you and your partner. So it always comes down to the people. First, we decide to trust. Then we look at the capabilities. Then
Mm,
we look at the
mm,
people. Then we look at the awards. Then we look at the work. We put our trust in other people. And so a video is fantastic, just as a podcast is, because people can listen and go, okay, well, these are the kinds of questions Lance asks. And he's
mhm,
very organized. He has similar types questions, And the other thing you are, which people love, and it does build trust, is you're consistent, you're predictable, and you're reliable. You know that every Monday morning, they're going to hear from you. And every Friday, they're going to hear from you. It's consistent and it's predictable and it's reliable. And that builds trust. So I would say the video, they want to hear from you. And so when you show up on a video, it's the next best thing to being in person, because people get a sense of who you are, what's important to you, and what you're like. So that's the best thing. The second best thing would be a picture of you. But it's the people. And when I say, I work with companies to help them become the most trusted in their industry,
mhm,
it is a fundamental truth that companies are made up of people. So I work with the people. You can have the best designs in the world, the best plans in the world, the best pictures, the most patents, if you will, on how you do something, the best processes that are the most efficient and the best pricing. But at the end of the day, for every organization, especially in a professional services firm,
mhm,
it always comes down to the people, how they communicate, how they behave, and how they serve. So are they communicating with empathy? Are they communicating consistently? Are they behaving with integrity and honesty? Are they behaving in a way that shows their motives and intentions are in the other's best interest? Are they ethical? And then are they serving in a sincere and authentic way that it's timely and delivering on their promise? That's really what it comes down to. In fact, in my book, Trusted, I liken it like a triangle, and there are three sides to a triangle.
mm,
So that's why a video is so significant, because you can be a fantastic firm that provides great plans and the service is good and you act with integrity and your behavior is fantastic. However, you don't communicate well with the clients, or you don't share updates, and the trust breaks down. Just like you can have great service, behave with integrity and ethics, or excuse me, have great service, have wonderful, consistent communication that's clear and simple, but your behavior is inappropriate. Someone on the front lines doesn't treat a client well, a junior architect doesn't return a call. They,
mhm,
instead of calling, they send an email.
mm,
Well, then the trust breaks down. So you have to have all three components.
yeah. What happens? This is just something that I find that happens, and I get worried about it, and I don't know if I'm over worrying about it. Like, something's going to go wrong in a project, whether it's an architecture project, a real estate development project, a construction project. Especially construction, we also build stuff, and um, s- sometimes it's in our control, sometimes it's out of our control. So
Yes.
it's like when those things happen, I usually get the sense of, oh, no, 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 like we can't lose their trust, or it feels like we're losing their trust. How do you, what is the strategy that you give people or try to help them, coach them with, of like, is there immediate things they can do to just, make sure they put the Band-Aid on there and the trust is built and it's still there and we didn't lose it? Or if we have lost it, can we gain it back?
Yes and yes. So if you get the sense that you're either losing trust or maybe something fractured trust, you're probably right.
Hmm.
That's the very first thing that I would say to unpack that question. Um, and then the other thing that I would say is for you and everybody else that's listening, if you're always focused on building relationships of trust and building what I call that precious asset that I call trust equity, when and if you do make a mistake, which let's face it, most people do make mistakes. None of us are perfect. You have a cushion, you have trust equity built in. So I coined the term trust equity several years ago when I first started all this research in 2009. And trust equity is the amount of trust customers or the stakeholders, could be partners, have in your organization. Well, if you're always striving to build relationships of trust and you're always making deposits, Lance, when and if things go wrong, a project goes aside, someone doesn't show up in the field,
Hmm.
there's a supply chain issue and the shingles didn't show up, so the roof can't get finished and you can't close up before Christmas. When you go to the client or the team and you're open and honest with that, and you have this trust equity built up, it softens the mistake, if you will. It softens the issue. And so the very first thing I would say is, well, always strive to be applying the 8 principles of trust and always strive to be having a relationship of trust so that if there is a problem, you have trust equity built up. When and if there is a problem, like the one you described,
Hmm.
you can regain it. It's a lot easier to regain it if you already have trust built up. So that's the precursor. When and if there's a problem, an issue, a mistake, a crisis, right? There's a whole continuum of what could be a challenge. The very first thing I would say to regain trust, because you can regain it. For sure you can regain it, Lance. It's
Hmm.
not like it's gone in an instant.
Yeah.
You can regain it depending on what the issue is. The very first thing I would say is to acknowledge the problem,
Yeah.
acknowledge the issue. And actually, in my new book, Trusted, I actually have a whole section on the guidelines if there's an issue or a problem to regain trust if it's broken down.
I love that. Yeah, you can regain it. You're totally right about that. What I like to so if something goes wrong, I think the biggest thing that we try to pitch on this show a lot to people is you got to take extreme ownership. If it's your fault, if you made the mistake, then you just say, I made the mistake. That's my
Mhm.
fault. But I have some solutions.
Acknowledge.
Yep, just acknowledge it, and kind of go from there. Uh, you say that also trust can be measurable. I would love to hear more about that. Like, how do you measure something that's so intangible yet tangible? It's very strange, right?
Well, it's complex and it's
Hmm.
thorny. I don't think it's strange. I think, but to your point, it is complex. And we all know what it feels like when we have it, and we know what it feels like when we don't have it. In fact, this is kind of how I got into the research about the measuring it. Because when I started looking at trust with my business hat on and with,
Yep.
my practical lens on, I was thinking, well, I've always been taught what can be managed can be measured, and what you can measure you can manage. So I've always gone back to that. And so when I was doing my research, while in doing my graduate research and creating this framework, I thought, okay, well, how can we measure trust? And at that time, and still I don't know that anyone else out there actually measures a company's trust equity. So I created a measurement tool while in doing my graduate research called the Client Trust Index. I then went on to test it over a 7-year period, because in order to create an effective and an evidence-based tool that is effective, there are several stages that you go through. And I created the Client Trust Index based on the scientific method, so that when you measure, which I do now for clients by surveying their customers' lands. So I survey their customers, I ask them a number of statements, and within 9 minutes, you get a quantifiable trust equity score. And it is a measure of the client sentiment and their trust equity that they have in the company. And it's extremely powerful. A lot of
Yeah.
my clients use it as a key performance indicator. So they get a
Mhm.
measurement, a benchmark, and then then, when we get the results, again, all the data is evidence-based. They see where the opportunities are, where the cracks are, where they need to improve, or what they need to keep doing or stop doing. So it's really powerful, and it's quite enlightening, because it's all actionable, can't even talk. See, I'm so excited. Actionable based insights. So yeah, you can measure it. Lots of my
That's
clients
amazing.
do.
Then it will take away my feelings of strange. Like I was actually looking to see, you're one of these authors that I have on where I'm like, oh my goodness, I need this book. But I couldn't find it on Audible. Will it be on Audible at any time? Are you trying
Oh
to do
my
that?
gosh. So it just came out last week, and which is why I have a copy here.
Yeah.
And I'm working on the Audible now.
Okay, great.
So maybe after Thanksgiving, I
I'm gonna
I
put it.
actually recorded some of it this morning.
Oh,
So
cool.
yes.
I'm gonna just put it in my list of books then, to buy at some point when it does come on Audible.
Oh,
I love it.
thank
I
you.
mean, you've convinced me. One of the biggest ways we've tried to show that people trust us is like, you go ask for 5-star reviews on all the platforms, right? The Google
Yes.
Business and Thumbtack, and then people refer you, and they're like, if they're outward and they're actually able to say that for you publicly. But let's pivot back to your book here. We're kind of running up on the half hour. So you talk about these 8 principles of
Yes.
trust. Maybe you could just kind of give us the quick rundown of those.
Okay. Well, the whole book is about the 8 principles of trust, and how companies have applied these principles to their business to help them improve customer loyalty and business growth. So the book is relatively short. It's 170 pages, and each chapter is a principle. We have an introduction where I share the science and the evidence behind this framework, and then each chapter is a principle. So I'll just run through a couple of them for you and your listeners. So the very first principle is to listen carefully
Hmm.
with empathy and compassion, question and involve the other person in a conversation. Principle number 2 is to be clear and communicate in clear, concrete language. Number 3 is be honest and transparent. And so it goes on like that.
I love it. I love it. Well, I hope everybody's as intrigued as I am about the book. They pick it up. To second to the last question here that I ask everybody is, knowing what you know now, and if you could go back in time to when you first started getting into the business of trust, what is one piece of advice you'd give yourself?
Um, what a great question.
Oh yeah, it's a hard one.
I would say expect the unexpected. You know, be ready, Lance, for the unexpected. You can plan and plan and plan, and then something comes out of left field. My biggest clients in 12 years all showed up in very different ways. The biggest one literally just called me on my phone. They saw me online. They were searching business trust expert and saw that I did a study with Economist Impact and that I was named, as you mentioned, one of the world's top thought leaders in trust. I didn't know them. They called me and I ended up working with this company out of New York for a year, and they changed me in so many ways, and I never saw it coming. So be open and expect the unexpected.
I
That's
love
what I
that.
would tell
I love
myself.
that so much, Natalie. Last question here is where can people follow you if they want to get in touch about your services and the book and all of everything, Natalie?
Well, a few ways. You can find me on LinkedIn at Natalie Doyle Oldfield. My book, Trusted: The Proven Path to Customer Loyalty and Business Growth, is available in 3 formats today on
Mm.
Amazon: paperback, hard copy, and Kindle version, and soon to be audio. So that's on Amazon, Trusted: The Proven Path to Customer Loyalty and Business Growth. And you can also find me on my website, which is successthroughtrust.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I just sent Natalie a LinkedIn request myself. I hope everybody else will go check her out. Pick up the book, all the good stuff. Thank you for doing something so unique but so necessary in the world. I'm
Thank
really looking
you.
forward. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to listen to the audiobook when it comes out. So appreciate you being a guest on the show today.
Thanks so much. Great to meet you, Lance.
You too.
Have a great week.